Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Weekly Roundup. In Weekly Roundup, we cover the most important news of the last week. As prelims is approaching, we will be also focusing on the PYQs related to prelims examination. My name is Anuj and I will be taking today's session. In today's session, we will be covering 5 main news and 7 quick update and 1 place in news. In the first main news, we will be talking about global choke points and we will be discussing about their significance and what are the vulnerabilities there. Then in the second main news, we will be covering about Artemis-II mission of the NASA. Then we will be covering about the new nuclear power project in India. Then the new income tax act that have came into effect from the 1st April. Then in the last main news, we will be covering about the solid waste management rules of 2026. They have also came into effect from the 1st April. Then we will be briefly covering 7 quick update. Then in the place in news, we will be covering Haiti today. So this is the brief about today's session. Let us start the session with the first news. So as you might be aware that in UPSC prelims examination especially, there are many questions which are based on mapping and it can be related to India or it might be related to the world. We have observed that wherever there are conflict, there have been questions regarding the areas that have been in conflict. Here we will be talking about choke points and the context for the first news is that significance and vulnerability of the global choke points have risen in the West Asia war. It is related to paper 2 where syllabus talks about international relation. It is also related to economy, ethics and the other aspect of the UPSC syllabus. Now let us start the discussion of this news. First of all, you might be aware that the president of USA is behaving like Duggal साहब. सुबह उठते हैं, कुछ decide करते हैं, कुछ कर देते हैं, and it become the chaos all over the world. That is impacting the global economic stability. And according to a recent report, over 2/3 of the seaborne energy trade depends on few key choke points in the world. In this news, we will be knowing about these choke points, their name and what is their significance. So here, these choke points are shaping conflict escalation, energy prices, global financial stability outside the battlefield. Let us discuss what are the choke points. So you can see the map on your screen. So these are the major choke point. How we define choke points? These are the narrow, strategically important maritime passes crucial for the global trade. Okay, let us begin from the Panama Canal. It is a man-made canal which connect the Atlantic to the Pacific. Okay, it follows a staircase pattern that is dependent on water and the locking system. It is very interesting. Okay, suppose a ship is coming, okay, then it has this upside on the other side. So that lock will be loosened and water will rise to that level. Then ship will move forward. Then similarly, due to gravity, water will fall and that lock will come into effect. So there will be staircases of the water so that ships can pass in a narrow lane. Okay, and it is a man-made canal. Then here there is Strait of Gibraltar. Okay, so here it is between this Mediterranean and the Atlantic. Then we have Danish Strait. It is between North Sea and the Baltic Sea. Then we have Turkish Strait. It connect the Black Sea to Mediterranean Sea. Okay, you should also know about the neighboring countries of the Black Sea as well as the Caspian sea. You can use the mnemonics like Turkish burger, for the neighboring countries of Black Sea, and for the neighboring countries of the Caspian Sea, you can use the mnemonics of Tariq. Okay. Then we have Strait of Hormuz, which have been in news due to the conflict in the Western Asian region. And there have been impact on one more strait, that is Bab al Mandab. Okay, because they also control Iran, government also control the Houthis. They are also impacting the stability in this region. Then we have Suez Canal. Then we have Strait of Malacca. Okay, mostly the South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries and China's depend on this. And if there is a little bit conflict there, then we have Sunda Strait here, and we have also Singapore Strait here above this Strait of Malacca, and below this Strait of Malacca we have Sunda Strait. Okay, so these are some global choke points. Now let us move further and understand about the significance of these choke points. First of all, they are the trade and energy arteries. Okay, only due to the closing of Strait of Hormuz, there have been rising in the crude prices. Okay, that is the significance of these choke points. Okay, these choke points are critical for international maritime trade of oil and gas and other commodities. You might be knowing that most of the commodities are transported through the sea route. Then they have economic impact. Suppose I am a ship owner and my ship has to go through these choke points, and there are some vulnerabilities. First of all, I won't send my ship. Second, the insurance price that I will be paying will be high because there is higher risk. So that will automatically increase the price and the inflation at the global level. Then these are geopolitical flashpoint. What Iran has does, what have the main power of Iran, it has closed the Strait of Hormuz. That's why it is they become geopolitical flashpoint. Then the climate change risk. As we were discussing about the Panama Canal, we were discussing that there is requirement of water to pumped. But last to last year, there was a drought condition. And drought condition can be due to many factors, and one of which is climate change. So if there is climate change, such type of canal will be impacted. Then industrial and digital risk. You might be hearing that Iran can attack on the seawater cables. There are seawater cables through which internet flows from one area to another, and also Iran has attacked on the data centers which was near to the Strait of Hormuz, or in the countries which was near to this area. So they have industrial as well as digital risk. And what India can do, because around 94% of trade by volume of India is through sea routes. And if you are talking about sea route, we have to talk about the choke points. So what India can do to solve the more dependence on them, or on one choke point? So first of all, we have to diversify our energy sources. Then we have to strengthen our supply chain and scale up the renewable energy, because we are dependent on import for our crude oil. And if we have renewable energy, we will be less dependent on the import. Then we have to explore the alternative transportation route. Okay, so that if there is some mishappening at these choke points, we can go through that alternative transportation route. Then we have to strengthen military capabilities. That is the need of the hour for the deterrence. Okay, these are the some potential solution for India. Now let us look at the PYQ and mainly from the prelims perspective. Okay, so first PYQ is from the year 2024 and it was a debatable PYQ. Okay, so the first statement is that the Red Sea received very little precipitation in any form. Okay, if you have gone through your basic geography, you might be knowing that in this area there is descent of air. So there will be no precipitation or very less precipitation. Then the controversial statement, second statement, no water enter the Red Sea from rivers. UPSC does not clarify, are they talking about major river or minor river? So there was a lot of debate and there are some minor river which flows into the Red Sea. But according to UPSC answer, second statement is correct. Extreme statement. Okay. So even then it is correct according to UPSC answer key. Then the first statement is correct. So the answer for this question is both 1 and 2 are correct. Now let us discuss one more PYQ. So this PYQ is from the year 2017 and look at the creativity of the question, how creativity is playing the role here. Okay, the question is, which of the following is geographically closest to Great Nicobar? We have Andaman and Nicobar Island separated by 10-degree channel. So the question is, in the question they are asking that which of the following is geographically closest to the Great Nicobar, and the options are Sumatra, Borneo, Java and Sri Lanka. So Sumatra is somewhere here, then we have Java here, then we have Borneo, then we have Malay Peninsula here, there is Strait of Malacca there that we have discussed. So we have Sri Lanka here, we have India. Okay, simple question. Okay, just you have to analyze and think about the map. That's why maps are very important to clear the prelims examination. So the answer for this is A, Sumatra Island. Okay, so with this we have completed the first news. Now let us discuss the second news. Second news is about the Artemis-II mission. Artemis-II mission has been launched, astronaut into the outer space. In this news, we will be learning about this mission and why this is so significant. Okay, this mission for a moon with humans have been sent after 50 years. Last mission I think was in the year 1972 by USA by the name of Apollo. At that time, there was a race between Russia and USA to showcase the space power. Russia was the first country to send the human in space. But USA was the first country who landed on the moon. So that was about the background. But again, there is a mission, that is Artemis mission, to land human on the moon. And this is like a test flight. Let us discuss. It is related to paper 3, where syllabus talks about science and technology development and their application and effect in everyday life. So we have discussed about the background. Let us discuss the development. So this historic 10-day mission is the first crewed flight to the vicinity of the moon in over 50 years after the Apollo mission. Okay, USA mission, it was the USA mission only. In the year 1969, Neil Armstrong was the first person to land on the moon through this Apollo mission. Okay, but now the significance and the requirement of the missions are very different from the last time. That was a space race, or to show that we are superior at the time of the Cold War. Okay, let us start the discussion. What is this Artemis-II mission, or what is this Artemis mission? First of all, it is a NASA's flagship human space exploration program aimed at returning the humans to the moon. So it is the mission of NASA. NASA is a space agency of USA. Okay, so in the year 2020 to 2020, Artemis Accord were launched, which was a set of international agreements which have been signed by more than 60 nations, and India is also part of that, to ensure peaceful and transparent cooperation in the space exploration. If the question is about the accord, it is to ensure peaceful and the transparent cooperation in the space exploration. It is not related to the Mars directly. Indirectly, obviously, it is related, but the wordings are very important. And we will be knowing about this importance through solving the PYQs. Then there will be series of Artemis mission. So first mission was launched in the year 2022, where uncrewed mission that successfully tested the space launch system. This is the launch vehicle, the most powerful launch system of the USA, and Orion spacecraft around the moon. So we have also launched our mission to the moon, that is Chandrayaan. But Chandrayaan has taken long time, but they are taking a very short time. Why? What is the reason? Because their system is very powerful and not that efficient. But our launching system is not as powerful as the USA's, but is more fuel efficient. That's why it is taking longer distance. Our missions are taking the longer distance. Okay, if there is a question about the distance traveled by Chandrayaan and this Artemis mission, the distance traveled by Chandrayaan mission is higher because we have a more fuel efficient and less powerful launch vehicle when compared to USA. Then the Artemis-II mission that NASA have launched, it is a first crewed mission on a lunar flyby without landing. So they will fly by the lunar, and in the year 2028 they are planning to land on the moon, landing of the humans on the moon. Okay, now let us discuss about the renewed global interest in the moon's exploration. Why there has been increase in the global interest in moon exploration? First of all, about scientific and the technological advancement. Okay, every country wants that the science and technology should be developed before the world reach to that stage. Okay, so that is the first significance, and they can also understand the origin and the evolution of Earth and the solar system. Second, there are economic opportunities. So they will promote the space economy. Okay, then there will be resource utilization, that can be water ice or the potential helium-3. It is there in the moon soil, and helium can be used for the nuclear fusion. Okay, then this is can act for the gateway to the deep space. When these crewed astronaut will be revolving around the moon, when they will be go to the farther side, that will be the largest distance a human have traveled in the space. Okay, so that will act a gateway to deep space, and it will test the long duration missions for future Mars and the other exploration. Then strategic importance, it enhances the national prestige and space dominance. As we are seeing presently, the world order is dependent on the dominance. जिसकी लाठी उसी की भैंस. Okay, then the last in this news, the last is the major initiative for moon exploration by the various countries. So first, India's Chandrayaan series that we have discussed, then China's Chang'e 6, and Japan, that is smart lander for investigation moon. So these are not carrying humans. Okay, these are the landers on the moon. Okay, I think only USA is able to land human on the moon. Okay, and we have discussed about Chandrayaan before. Let us discuss the PYQ, which are not directly related to this news, but are related to the space science and how UPSC is asking question from the space science in the prelims examination. Let us solve the first question of the year 2020. Sorry. The experiment will employ a trio of the spacecraft flying in formation in the shape of an equilateral triangle that has sides 1 million kilometer long, with laser shining between the craft. The experiment in the questions referred to. Okay, so these are the mission and this is a line. Okay, so it is about the evolved LISA. If you know about the full form of LISA also, then also you can solve. It is laser interferometer space aircraft, I think. So if you know about that also, then also you might be have to solve this question. Now let us discuss the next question. The next question is interlinking the theory of relativity of the Albert Einstein, the general theory of relativity with space science. Don't think it is a very difficult question. Okay, let us read this. First, consider the following statement. Light is affected by gravity. Okay, that is true. Second, the universe is constantly expanding. You might have read about Big Bang. Then, matters was in surrounding space-time. This is a little bit difficult statement in all three. And they are asking that which of the above is or the prediction or predictions of Albert Einstein in general theory of relativity, which is often discussed in media. So they were in the current affairs. And the reason for that was LIGO. Okay. The answer for this is D, 1, 2, and 3. Previously, there was a tendency that in science question, the answer usually was all of the above. But recently, UPSC have changed that trend where in the science question, the answer is not all of the above. Okay, let us discuss the next news. Next news is related to the new nuclear project in Rajasthan. So, Atomic Energy Regulatory Board of India have approved the excavation for nuclear project in Rajasthan. This is the context. In this news, we will be covering about the nuclear power, nuclear projects in India. It is related to paper 3, okay, science and technology. Let us discuss this news. So first of all, the development. So development is that the approval of excavation for the construction of the Mahi Banaswara Rajasthan Atomic Nuclear Power Project Unit 1 and 2 was given by the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board of India. Before understanding this news, let us understand about nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. In nuclear fission, we are splitting up the element. In fusion, we are merging the element. When there is splitting or merging, there is loss of mass, and that mass is converted into energy. You might have heard about this. Energy is equal to mc square. Here the m is mass, that is lost, c is constant, and E is the energy produced. And this nuclear power is used to generate electricity in nuclear power plants. So basically, the fundamentals in nuclear power plants are that a generator is simply used to convert the mechanical energy into electrical energy, that is rotated by a stream, not by a stream but a turbine, and that turbine is rotated by steam, and that steam is generated by this energy in nuclear power plants. We are using nuclear fission to produce energy. We are not able to achieve the nuclear fusion at a scalable rate because the temperature required for fusion reactions are very high. The sun temperature is very high. That's why there is fusion in suns. Okay, so that is the reason that there are many experiments for the fusion, but we are not able to achieve that on a scalable level. Now let us look at the news. First of all, the nuclear power capacity in India. So currently there are 24 reactors across 7 power plants with installed energy capacity of around 8.7 gigawatt, which comprises 24 nuclear power plants. Okay, so let us look at the 7 operational nuclear power plants in India. We have Rajasthan Atomic Power Station, that is there in Rawat. Then we have Kakrapar Atomic Power Station in Gujarat, Tarapur in Maharashtra, Kaiga in Karnataka, Kundankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu. It is the largest power plant in India. Then we have Madras Atomic Power Station and Narora Atomic Power Station. Madras Power Station is in Tamil Nadu, and Narora Atomic Power Station is there in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, so nuclear power account for around 3.1% of India's total electricity generation, and it is the 5th largest non-fossil fuel source. So please listen to this carefully, that nuclear energy is non-fossil fuel source but not a renewable power source. It's a clean energy source but not a renewable power source. Okay, and the reason is that the fuel which is used is not replenished very quickly. Now let us move further and understand about the Mahi Banaswara Rajasthan Atomic Nuclear Power Project. First of all, it is located in Banaswara, Rajasthan, near the Mahi Dam on the river Mahi. And its capacity is 4 into 700 megawatt electric, and they will be using 4 pressurized heavy water reactors. Okay, and pressurized heavy water reactors uses natural uranium as fuel and heavy waters as deuterium oxide, which is heavy water, as coolant and moderator. We have another type of reactors as well, that is pressure water reactor, and here enriched uranium is used. So in natural uranium, only 0.7% U concentration is there of U-235, which is in the enriched uranium, which is used in PWR, pressurized water reactor, is up to 3 to 5%. Enrichment of uranium is required. In the year 2023, UPSC have asked a question based on this information, where they have asked that almost 60% of enrichment of uranium is required to produce electricity. Actually, that was a wrong statement. Okay, and if you think why UPSC have asked about 60%, because at that time there was reports that Iran have enriched uranium up to 60%. And they were planning to enrich uranium up to 90%, which is used in nuclear bombs. Okay, that was the context for that question. Okay, moving further, it is developed by Anusakti Vidyut Nigam, Aswani, and it is a joint venture between Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited and National Thermal Power Corporation Limited. Now let us move further and discuss about the step taken to boost the nuclear energy production in India. First of all, the nuclear energy mission that have been announced in the budget of 2025-26. In this, they have talked about the development of small modular reactor, SMR, and they have said that by the year 2033, there will be development of 5 SMRs. What are small modular reactors? Which can produce energy up to 300 megawatt electricity, and they can be assembled and carried from one place to another. That is the advantage of small modular reactors. Then the nuclear energy target, it is about 100 gigawatt by the year 2047. Presently, we have around 8 gigawatts. Then the Shanti Act of 2025. It is a very important act, both from the prelims point of view as well as from the mains point of view. So it consolidate and modernize the India's nuclear legal framework, and it have also permitted the private participation in nuclear and power generation. Now let us discuss the PYQs related to this news. First, from the year 2020. So in India, why are some nuclear reactors are kept under IAEA safeguard while others are not? Simple question. Okay, so you might be knowing that some of the reactors are under IAEA safeguards. These safeguards are for that the uranium which is imported to India should not be used for making the nuclear bomb. So it should not be enriched till 90% that can be used to make nuclear bomb. That is about IAEA safeguard. And the answer is that some nuclear power plant uses imported uranium and other uses domestic supplies. Now let us discuss one more PYQ from the year 2016. So question is that India is an important member of International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. If this experiment succeed, what is the immediate advantage of India? When we were discussing the development of the news, we were discussing about fission and fusion. So fusion is a difficult reaction which has to be achieved at a temperature, continuous temperature of a sun. So this experiment is about that. So answer is that it can build fusion reactor for power generation. Now let us move to the next news. Next news is about the new Income Tax Act of 2025 that have came into effect from April 1st. It is related to GS paper 3 where syllabus talks about economic development. In this news, we will be discussing about the key provisions of this act because it is very important for your prelims examination and obviously for your mains examination where you can be asked directly about the various provisions or significance of this act. Let us start the discussion of this news. First of all, the development. So this act replaces the 6-decade-old Tax Act of 1961 with objective to enhance predictability, transparency, reduce the compliance burden and offer taxpayer a streamlined and simplified tax filing processes. So you might be knowing about direct tax and indirect tax. Suppose you are buying chocolate, there will be some tax on that, GST. That is indirect tax. You are paying indirectly and it is a regressive tax. So either you are buying or Ambanis are buying. Both of them or you and Ambani are paying the same tax. That's why it is a regressive tax. Then the direct tax. Suppose someone is earning around 15 lakhs. So he or she have to pay some tax directly to the government, that is direct tax. And direct tax in India is a progressive tax. That means it rises with the rise of the income. Okay, now let us discuss the key provisions of the act. First of all, it uses simpler language and framework. The previous act was very bulky in nature and the language used was very complex. So in this act, they have made the language simple and the framework is little bit short than the previous act. So act has been condensed from 819 to 536 sections and 390 to 190 forms. Then second, the provisions of minimum alternate tax and alternate minimum tax have been separated. What is minimum alternate tax? So there is a company A. It has earned profit. It has given dividend to its shareholder. But it is saying that I cannot give taxes to government because I have some XYZ compensation. But government is saying if you are showing book profit, you have to give some amount to government, around 15% plus cess plus surcharge. That is minimum alternate tax. And it is applicable to corporates only. Although it is an extreme statement, but please remember that this statement will be correct, that it is applicable to corporates only, and it is here is minimum alternate tax. Then there is alternate minimum tax. It is for everyone except the corporates. Same provision, if someone is showing book profit, but there are lot of concession he or she is claiming, then there will be application of alternate minimum tax. Okay, so MAT bring into tax the net zero tax companies which, in spite of having earned substantial book profit, do not pay any tax dues, whereas AMT has similar provision as of MAT, which is applicable to non-corporate taxpayer. It can be a trust, it can be HUF. Okay. Now let us move to the other provision. The other provision is about tax year concept. So what it is? First of all, the traditionally separate concept of financial year and assessment year. Suppose a person is earning some amount in the year 2023-2024. So this is the financial year. But when government is assessing it, the next year 2024-2025 was known as assessment year, because government was assessing the financial income of a person of the last year. That used to create a confusion. Now they have simplified it, and they are saying that it has been merged into a single unified term of tax year. And there is stability in the core tax element. And here tax is related to direct taxes. Okay. So tax rates and regime for individuals and corporate remain same. There are no changes in offenses and penalties. Then most definition have also been remained same. Then faceless collection of information and assessment of the tax cases. So the core have been same, but there are changes that we are discussing. So there is stability in the core tax elements. Then about the undisclosed income, there is addition of one term, that is virtual digital assets. Suppose I have a blockchain that has some amount, so that can be declared under undisclosed income if I have not declared that to the government. So now the definition of the undisclosed income for assessing such cases which previously included money, bullions, jewelry or other valuable article is now expanded to include the virtual digital asset. Then about the virtual digital space access. Now the income tax authorities are now allowed to gain access to virtual digital space during the search and the seizure proceeding. It includes your Gmail accounts. Okay. So with this we have completed this news. Now let us discuss a PYQ which is related to GST, indirect taxation. But the question is about direct taxation. So as there are so many news, or the news related to direct taxation is there in the newspaper, so there are chances that there can be question regarding direct taxation. Now let us look at the question of the year 2017. So question is, what is or are the most likely advantage of implementing goods and service tax, GST? First, it will replace the multiple taxes collected by multiple authorities and will thus create a single market in India. It was the aim of this act. Second, it will drastically reduce the current account deficit of India and will enable it to increase its foreign exchange reserves. So if this word drastically was not there, then this statement can be correct, because this goods and service tax will increase the ease of doing in business in India, that can increase the export of India. But the drastically word is very important. It won't drastically reduce the capital account deficit. Then similarly, it will enormously increase the growth and size of the economy. So these two words are very important. They make the statement as extremes. It will enormously increase the growth and size of the economy of India and will enable to overtake China in the near future. Okay, this was not the aim, so the answer is A1 only. Now let us move to the last quick update for today. So the last quick update for today is about solid waste management rules 2026, which have came into effect from 1st of April. In this news, we will be learning about these rules and related information. It is related to paper 3, where syllabus talks about sustainable development. So the development that these rules were earlier notified by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under Environmental Protection Act of 1986. All the acts related to environment are very important. Either it might be Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Biological Diversity Act of 2002, Environmental Protection Act of 1986, Air Act regarding pollution and its control of 1981, or Water Act regarding pollution and its control of 1974. All the acts which are related to environment are very important for your prelims examination. So these rules will supersede the solid waste management rules of 2016. Please also look into the fact that what are the other rules which are there under the Environment Protection Act. Okay, e-waste rules, plastic management rules, hazardous handling rules. So please look into the various rules which are there under Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Now let us discuss the solid waste generation in India. So as per Central Pollution Control Board, total solid waste generated in India was about 1.85 lakhs tons per day. Okay, so much of waste is generated in India. So here Central Pollution Control Board, it is a statutory body under Water Act of 1974. Then around 61% of this get processed or treated. Remaining 39% goes into landfill that create various type of harmful impact on the environment. Then what are the challenges? First of all, absence of proper collection and segregation at source, the limited availability of land and financial constraint with the local bodies. Local bodies are also involved in handling of solid waste. So they have financial constraint. Okay, you might have heard about the 3 F's of local bodies: function, functionaries and funds. The issues with the local bodies, and here they are talking about the financial constraint, the fund constraint. Now let us discuss the key provisions of this year's rules. First of all, there is mandatory 4-stream segregation at the source. So first, wet waste, it is kitchen and organic waste. You can think of banana peel, it will come under wet waste. Then dry waste, it is plastic, paper and metals, your plastic bottles. Then sanitary waste, it can be the diapers or tampons. Then special care waste, okay, the medicine which have expired, or the paints or the bulbs. Then it talks about bulk waste generators accountability. So in the SWM rules of 2016, bulk waste generator have to process the waste at the on-site processing site. Bulk waste generators are the generator who produce bulk in large quantity. For example, a society, school, large hospital. Okay. So now under the extended bulk waste generator responsibility, the bulk waste generator are required to obtain an extended bulk waste generator responsibility certificate where on-site processing is not feasible. Okay, so they can generate this certificate. Then polluter pay principle for non-compliance. What is polluter pay principle? Suppose I am polluting the environment, I will be paying for it. That is polluter pay principle. Then duties of local bodies. They have to collect, segregate and transport the solid waste in coordination with the material recovery facilities. These facilities are for sorting of the solid waste. Then there is industrial use of refuse derived fuel. So you should be knowing about what is refuse derived fuel. So they are the fuel. So they are the fuel who have high calorific value, and they are made by the sorting of the solid waste. So non-combustible components are removed and the components which are combustible, they are used. This include the plastic as well, but they have high calorific value. Then lastly, there is a special provision for the hilly areas and island. Okay, you might have heard about the menace by the tourism. We as a tourist are polluting hilly areas and islands. So there are special provision for hilly areas and the island. These are the key provision under SWM rules of 2026. Now let us solve the PYQ which are related to this news. So first question is from the year 2019. The question is, in India, extend producer responsibility was introduced as an important feature in which of the following? First, the medical bio waste. Second, the recycled plastic, the e-waste, the food safety and standard regulation. So it was introduced by the e-waste management and handling rules 2011. Now it is an static information. Then one more PYQ related to this news. The question is from the year 2018. How is the National Green Tribunal different from Central Pollution Control Board? So it is mixing polity with the environment. So first statement, the NGT has been established by Act, NGT Act, whereas CPCB has been created by an executive order of the government, but it is established under Water Act. So it is an statutory body, not an executive body. So first statement is not correct. Then second, the NGT provides environmental justice and help reduce the burden of litigation in the higher courts, whereas the CPCB promotes cleanliness of streams and wells and aim to improve the quality of air in the country. So these are the aims of these bodies. So the answer is B, 2 only. With this, we have completed the main news for today. Now let us discuss the place in news for today. The place in news for today is Haiti. So the context is not that important, but this region is very important. This complete region. And why? Because recently, Cuba, this country, Cuba, was blockaded by USA, and Russia provided the required fuel by breaking that blockade. So this area is there in news. First of all, the features of the Haiti. Today we are covering the country Haiti. So it is located between the Caribbean Sea and North Atlantic Ocean. So it is the Caribbean Sea and it is the North Atlantic Ocean. It occupies the western one-third of the island of Hispaniola. Okay. And what are the neighboring countries? The neighboring countries are Dominican Republic border on the eastern side of the island, which is here. Then we have Cuba here and Jamaica on the west side. Then it won independence from France in the year 1804, and it is positioned on the edge of the tectonic plates, which make it vulnerable to the strong earthquake. So there is this plate, tectonic plate, that is Caribbean plate, and we have North America plate as well. Okay, so they are merging together, that's why there are chances of earthquake. So this was about the place in news for today. Now let us discuss the quick updates for today. So first quick update is regarding the census 2027. So the context is that the first phase of the census 2027 have begun on the 1st April. And it is the 16th census in this series and the 8th since independence. Actually, it was planned for the year 2021, but there was Corona. So it was postponed and now it has been started. So it is the world largest and first digitally conducted census with the option of self-enumeration, and it will be conducted in the 2 phases. First phases have begun. Okay, and there will be house listing and the population enumeration. First census in India, if we consider this as the 16th, it was started in 1872. So 8 was before the independence and this is the 8th after the independence. It will include the first nationwide caste enumeration in independent India. Extreme statement. Last time we have included the caste enumeration in the year 1931 for all the communities beyond scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And it is conducted, or census is conducted in India by Office of Registrar General and Census Commissioner, which is under Ministry of Home Affairs. And what is the legal backing? Legal backing is Census Act of 1948 and Census Rule of 1990. Now let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about Samrat Samprati. Okay. So here the context is that the Honorable Prime Minister have inaugurated the Samrat Samprati Museum in Koba, that is there in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. So he was a Mauryan Empire and the grandson of Asoka. And his parents were Kunal and Kanchan Mala. He is also known as with the name Indrapalit, Sangat and Vigata Asok. And what is his main contribution? His main contribution is regarding spreadism or spread of Jainism. That's why he is also referred as Jain Asoka. Okay. And he is described in Jain scriptures like Sampratikatha, Parisit Parva and Prabhavat Charita. Okay. Now let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about the Jorari Luni Bandi river system. So the main river is Luni and these 2 rivers are the tributaries of the river Luni. Context here is that the Supreme Court appointed high level committee which have highlighted that industrial pollution have polluted this system. In this news, we will be covering about this river system. So Luni river originate from western slope of Aravalli range near Ajmer, and it does not meet the ocean. It ends in the run of Kutch, and it is very salty in nature because it is flowing through the deserts, and its tributaries include Jorari, Bandi, Mitri, Lilari, Sukri and Javai. Okay, let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about RBI's two-factor authentication. Okay, what it is and how it is done, that we will be learning. So based on RBI's rule from the 1st April, all digital transaction must be verified using at least two-factor authentication, with least one factor being dynamic. So previously there was requirement of at least one factor authentication. So if you have to send money to someone, you can generate a PIN, and by using that PIN you can send money to someone. But it was leading to financial frauds, as there was phishing as well as swapping of the SIMs. So what RBI has done, that now there will be minimum requirement of two-factor authentication. One that will be dynamic, that can be like PIN or the other. Other will be static, like requirement of a particular device or a by using face or by using the thumbprint. Okay, this is about the two-factor authentication. Now let us move to the next news, that is about the fertilizer sectors. Why we are doing? Because fertilizers are there in the news due to various reasons, such as the issues in Western Asia. In this news, we will be covering about the basic facts of the fertilizer sector. First of all, let us understand that fertilizer subsidy is the second highest subsidy in India from the government's point of view. Largest subsidy which is given by the government is food subsidy. So India is reliant on the import of about 13 to 20% of its urea and 60% of diammonium phosphate need. So there is requirement of import, and especially of the potash. We are dependent on imports for the potash fertilizers. The Gulf region remains a key source of fertilizer imports, which account for 20 to 30% of urea and 30% of DAP imports, and also supplies around 50% of India's LNG imports, liquefied natural gas. This liquefied natural gas is used for urea production in India, and if there is impact on the LNG import, it will automatically impact on the urea production. Then India is the second largest consumer and the third largest producer. This statement is very important. There can be a statement where UPSC can ask that China is the largest consumer or India is the largest consumer. So here India is the second largest consumer. Similar type of question or statement was given by UPSC regarding the groundwater. Okay, then about the domestic production, nearly 73% of the country's total fertilizer requirement are met through the domestic production. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the Bhavsagar, and the context here is that Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has officially designated Bhavsagar Referral Center as National Repository for Deep Sea Fauna. In this news, we will be covering about Bhavsagar. It is located at the Center for Marine Living Resources and Ecology, which is there in Kochi in Kerala. and this works under Ministry of Earth Sciences. You might have heard about Samundrayaan. It is also under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Okay, please read about the mission Samundrayaan, what is its aim and its objective and what is it all about. Then coming to the Bhavsagar, it will serve as a critical national facility for preserving, studying and documenting the India's deep sea biological heritage. And what are its key functions? First of all, to secure custody of the biological samples and the DNA sequences of the marine species who are deep, are found in the deep oceans. Then holding the type specimen, it acts as an official custodian for any new discoveries in the deep sea species. Then capacity building. It uses its experience in the deep sea taxonomy to align with the UN Decade of Ocean Science, that is 2021 to 2030. Now let us move to the next news. Next news is about the energy statistics of India. So here the important aspect is that which institution releases this, that is energy statistics of India. And the data from these statistics can be used in the mains examination, and the institution, which institution is releasing this statistics, can be asked in the prelims examination. So the context here is that the National Statistics Office, which is under Ministry of Statistics Program and Implementation, has released the Energy Statistics India of 2026. What are its major findings? Its major finding is that the total primary energy supply grew by 2.9% in last year to reach around 9.3 lakhs kiloton of oil equivalent. Okay. Then renewable energy generation is standing at 47 lakh megawatt, and the top 3 states are Rajasthan, Maharashtra and Gujarat. And it's also talk about the potential of renewable energy in India. In that, the largest component is of solar energy, that is around 71%, and which is followed by wind and the large hydro project. But presently, coal remains the dominant source. If we talk about the installed capacity, that is higher for renewable energy. But when we talk about source, then coal remains the dominant source. So with this, we have completed the today's session. If you want to read further the current affairs, you can visit the current affairs website of Vision IAS, and you can also solve various quizzes there that are there. The smart quizzes are there. So thank you and all the best for your preparation.